Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie, and today I'm delighted to be joined by two very special guests. Yes, I am. Today I am joined by Andy Dignam, Chief Customer Officer at Five9, alongside Kalen Shabella, Executive Vice President of Product Management at Five9 too. So today we're going to be discussing the current AI revolution, as Five9 have touted it, that's currently going on within contact centers. And I think, Callum, maybe I'll pass the first question on to you, and that is kind of what are the key enablers that have sparked this AI revolution within the contact center market?
Well, thanks, Charlie. I think it's a combination of factors, but foremost among those would be essentially the move to the cloud by a lot of organizations for customer contact. A lot of the technologies that we're talking about enabling artificial intelligence in the contact center are really only available in the cloud. And so as organizations make that leap into the cloud, they're then able to tap in and use those technologies. I think the other part of that too is that it's meant that because those technologies are now accessible, and these technologies I'm talking about, things like the core engines that underpin artificial intelligence, whether it be streaming speech recognition, whether it be large language models, whether it be natural language processing, all of these things are rapidly coming down in their price point. And what that means is it sort of democratizes that entire market. So the big shift that we've seen is as people move into the cloud, they realize that they can now access this technology and that it is now affordable for them. And then the types of solutions that they're then able to build just proliferate throughout their organization. And so you see this widespread adoption of AI-powered solutions that you didn't see just a handful of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some really great points there in terms of the accessibility, the lower price point, and alongside the kind of the widespread nature of AI these days. And it's interesting now, maybe if we could dig into some of the use cases that you're both kind of seeing within the contact center market. So I don't know, Andy, if you could maybe tell us a little bit about how contact centers are using AI today.
Yeah, good question. And I could also add on to what Kalen said. The sort of there's the product side of it, right? But then there's also the services side, right? So historically, to be able to deliver AI solutions, you needed an army of PhD linguists and data scientists and things like that. You still need some of those, right? There's still a lot of complex use cases out there, but it's sort of the product has been democratized, which really then scales to allow customers themselves to do development, things like that, right? So I think that's going to really help drive some of the revolution. And I think from a use case perspective, I'll credit Kalen here for when he was at Inference, him and the team. And when you think about like a pyramid, right, on the lowest end of the pyramid, you have a high volume of very low value transactions, right, like answering very simple FAQ questions, all the way up to the top, which are could be something like returns of a product, right, which you're going to want that agent touch, that human empathy. So so generally what we do is we like to come in and do a full assessment of customers' use cases and sort of slot them into where the complexity, high, medium, and low, and really tackle the low ones, sort of that crawl, walk, run mentality. And the great thing though is the product and the technology has come so quickly that it's not like we have to spend a whole year just focusing on the low value. We're starting to be able to really look at some of these high value, complex use cases. things like needing to be able to handle complex alphanumeric membership codes for healthcare, things like that before, is really tough to do. So I think that's sort of how we start the interaction and the engagement with our customers. And what we're seeing from a use case perspective, a lot of financial services, a lot of healthcare is really where we're seeing some of the main use cases. You think in financial services, we have lots of trades that are going on. And so we have some financial services customers that they go through and leverage a voice IVA to get the initial, hey, what trades, how many, what do you want to make? So that when you do get to a broker, they have all that information to be able to quickly do that trade. We're seeing, interestingly, I don't know if we cornered the market, but we had 3 customers who schedule rides, whether it be Uber or otherwise, for individuals who don't have a car, right? So you can call in very quickly, say, hey, here's my location. Here's the doctor's office I'm going to. I may have many of them. even use cases that seem simple, but they're actually, from a technology perspective, coordinating all that is pretty difficult. So lot of different use cases that we're seeing, and those, really, I think financial services, healthcare are where we're seeing some of the specific use cases for IVA, right? Agent Assist is a bit, we're seeing that kind of across a broader number of customers. You think about Agent Assist, really it's all about making your best, taking your best agent and making everyone sort of be just as good as them. And so we're seeing that really across every vertical. So I don't know if you have anything else to add, Kalen, on any use cases that you're seeing out there.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. But essentially, I think what we're mostly seeing is we're seeing sort of anything that's transactional in nature as being a good candidate for automation through artificial intelligence. Anything that's more long form conversational in manner, that's where we want to apply sort of the human agents in the contact center. And those human agents themselves are going to be assisted through artificial intelligence as well through Agent Assist, as Andy mentioned.
Yeah, and I really like the point as well, Andy, that you mentioned in terms of kind of taking those low value use case, low hanging fruit value use cases first, and giving customers almost that confidence to kind of build their AI strategy over time. I thought that was
Yeah,
really great. And
yeah, yeah.
there's
And what it helps too is the agents. Right? You think about agents all day long. They want to work on the hardest use case conversations, right? And so when you can leverage them for that, it makes their, I always like to say happier agent, happier customer. And, I think AI is really sort of helping fuel that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Callan and I have had a conversation in the past as well about kind of another form of AI too, and conversational intelligence. And I'm sure that's one that you're seeing a lot too, and that's fueling a lot of the agent assist innovations that you're both talking about too. But I won't dwell on that too much, and I want to kind of talk more about kind of where this is all heading with contact center AI. So I don't know, Callan, if you can give us more of a sense of how the role of AI in the contact center of the future.
Yeah, I think there's kind of like three main categories of how to kind of apply artificial intelligence in the contact center. Uh, the first is what Andy mentioned before. It's in sort of the full automation of a transaction, whether that be through an intelligent virtual agent on a voice channel, whether it be a chatbot on a text channel, whether it be on a social channel or SMS or something like that. So we have that sort of category of sort of full uh, self-service powered by conversational agents, right? Where there's essentially no human agent in the loop apart from obviously the customer themselves. So that's one category. The second category is okay, now that interaction has arrived and an agent and a customer are kind of talking together, whether they're talking over chat, whether they're talking over voice channel or whatever, and artificial intelligence is essentially assisting that agent to do their job in some way. That could be in the form of sort of presenting relevant knowledge to the agent. It could be in the form of changing or influencing how the agent is responding to the customer, because it could listen to essentially the words being used and whether the words are sort of negative in nature, whether the customer or where the agent is speaking too quickly, whether the customer is getting frustrated. All of those stuff can be sort of monitored with AI now. And then the third category, and this is sort of a really big area in itself, is in the sort of the analysis of interactions after the fact. So looking at at scale across all the interactions that a business is engaging with its customers, and using AI to plot trends, plot opportunities, look at how things are essentially changing on a day or hourly basis, and then being able to respond to that in sort of near real time, or as close as you can get, in order to provide a better customer experience. So those are the three big kind of categories that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great to kind of categorize AI, especially in such a manner, and that's so useful for kind of prospective customers again looking to build out their strategy. I don't know, maybe Andy, if there's anything you would add to that around kind of how you see contact centers using AI in the future.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is, I think one thing we're learning is customers are coming up to speed very quickly themselves also, right? A lot of times, again, previous AI engagements, it was, hey, we were coming in and we already knew more than everyone, right? When you think about the technology. But now most customers are hiring a chief AI officer, right, themselves. They're scaling up their own data scientists. And so sometimes when you're coming in to an opportunity, either customers are very knowledgeable or they don't have as much knowledge, but they might think they have a lot of knowledge, right? Based on a lot of the hype that's out there. So I think what I think about the future is I think we're going to end up though with much more knowledgeable customers, which actually I think makes the engagement. You think about myself and my team, we go out and work with our customers to deploy and implement these projects. And a lot of times we spend a lot of time training and giving the customer knowledge, and they have to learn a lot. But I think the future is just more knowledgeable customers around this, and I think it'll make for easier implementation of use cases because a lot of times we start with that crawl, walk, run, but ultimately I think we'll be able to get to the run faster with more knowledgeable customers.
That's quite an interesting challenge in itself of how contact center can deploy these technologies is kind of perhaps the lack of knowledge that a lot of service operations have of this technology. What other maybe challenges are you seeing around AI in the contact center at the moment, and how can contact centers perhaps overcome them too?
Yeah, I think the number one thing we see when we engage in an opportunity is most customers' data is not easily organized in a way that we can, because ultimately, think about it, we go in order to really drive an AI opportunity or strategy, it really comes down to the data, right? And a lot of customers have attempted, some sort of CDP project, right? It's most customers are in the middle of a CDP project. So they have aspirational use cases they want to go after, but their data isn't organized in such a way that we can access it, which then goes into a lot of times we have to integrate to the customer's backend data, and a lot of times they're not very easily accessible with simple REST APIs and things like that. So that's probably like the number one thing I would say we run into. Although the technology with large language models is making the ability to feed data into applications much easier. It's still not fully there at scale, but I think we'll get there. And then the other thing is just data privacy, right? A lot of customers, especially in certain verticals, regulated areas, that's one of the challenges we run into. A lot of the conversations, both in the upfront pre-sales and the ongoing is where is this data stored? Who has access to this data? And we're very extremely cautious around that, both from a product perspective as well as how we implement it. But usually that's sort of a key part of the engagement that oftentimes slows things down.
I would just add on to that, and I think one other sort of category of pain point that we see too in implementations is making sure that there's good alignment between the vendor, let's say, helping with the implementation, and the buyer understanding kind of what success for a project looks like. One of the interesting things about AI-driven projects, particularly conversational automation projects, is you can always continue to work on them, but you need to make sure you're working towards a mutually agreed expectation of that success. Occasionally, we get a client that would say, I'd like to actually use AI in this use case. And we look at that and we say, well, that's actually not a very good idea. And these are the reasons why. Or we require this sort of an outcome. And we can say, well, based on the experience and based on deploying this across hundreds of enterprises, this is the experience you're likely to be able to obtain. And just making sure you set that success metric alignment really early on in the process.
Yeah, that's actually extremely important. We run across that quite a bit, and then what that made me think of, though, Kalen, too, is a lot of times our customers expect day one, right? That hey, if they expect, I want 90% accuracy, right? Well, we need to continually tune. We need to continually leverage the conversations, and so a lot of times we want to get to a quick time to value, right? I think customers do as well. So out of the gate, you might be at a lower accuracy level, but we fairly quickly, we're talking weeks, maybe a month, you really start to see the performance of the AI application go up pretty quickly. So that's another thing, just making sure the customer realizes that it's okay to go live quickly, right? And then get to a point, very, sort of fast follow on that.
Yeah, I think there's some really good points around kind of aligning customer expectations and setting those expectations properly and managing those out of the gate. It does make me kind of think about the question of, where should a contact center start when thinking about how they can use AI in the contact center. I don't know, Kalen, if you have any kind of insights into this.
So, I mean, one of the best ways of doing that, and is essentially having a look at what the customer currently has. And what I mean by that is have a look at all of the conversations or interactions that are happening in the business, mine those, and look for suitable candidates within let's say those customer care workloads. Generally, what we're looking for when we're doing that sort of stuff is we're looking at transactions. Going back to Andy's point earlier about sort of that pyramid of customer contact, we're looking for those transactions that may be relatively low value on their own, but there's lots and lots of them, and whether those could be automated entirely. And what we're also looking for is those types of interactions where it's clear that having a human in the loop, or actually a human engaged in the conversation in the form of a contact center agent, is going to add a lot of value in terms of the success or failure of that conversation. So these sort of high empathy environments where there's maybe a lot of emotion involved, you absolutely want your people involved in those types of conversations. And so being able to identify those things. So a lot of what we're doing at Five9 is looking at approaches to how we can mine that data and then look at and categorize that data automatically for you, and then make a recommendation to you in a very sort of data-driven way to say, this is how we feel you should go about your AI implementation process, and these are the reasons why.
Yeah. And I think to add on to that, specifically, usually the first starting point is if we can get access to a customer's call recordings, right? Again, obviously in a very data privacy specific way, but then we can take those and leverage technology to essentially get a summarization of that, get those transcriptions. And usually what we'll do with our services team is we'll go off, we'll take those transcriptions, we'll feed it through certain applications that we have, as well as the products that Kalen and team are building. And we'll come back in a week and say, hey, look, of all of your calls, we went back, let's say 90 days. Here's all the various intents. Here's the number of them. And then we'll even leverage our business consulting team to go map, like, what was the cost of some of those intents? Or in a sales contact center, what's the potential upside, right? Can you increase revenue by doing something? And so, I think that really allows you to sort of quantify from a business perspective, an efficiency perspective, what the best use cases to go after. And then, to Kalen's point, the technology is getting to a point where we can feed in not just recordings, but FAQs, knowledge bases, all of these things to be able to make our applications work better.
Yeah, I think from what you both painted a great kind of picture about where a contact center should start, and I love the point about kind of mapping out those intents, maybe spotting areas where you can add, where you can maybe just improve a process upstream and save so much money, and also kind of spotting opportunities for conversation automation, opportunities to make the agent experience easier with a bit of automation, maybe so much great stuff there. And when we're talking about mapping out kind of the queries that customers are typically asking, generative AI is already playing a role in this and kind of summarizing conversations, spotting the topics, and helping us spot those automation opportunities. I don't know, maybe Andy, if you want to take this one, kind of how close are we to having maybe this generative AI solution that you can kind of plug into your contact center and for it to do all of these wonderful things?
Yeah, I think Kalen is more the expert here, so I'll pass the ball to Kalen.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, if we're talking about generative AI in the form of sort of large language model technology, then we are already able to use that within the contact center, but it's not as simple as just say, I'm going to talk to a large language model. I'm going to allow my customer to just talk to a large language model, and I'm going to expect a good outcome. I would say if you were going to do that, you're going too far in terms of believing the hype, because as we know, the whole thing about generative AI in particular is it's generating new types of content. And in a contact center environment, you typically want to really control the types of answers you're giving to questions, the type of guidance you're giving to questions. You take it to the extreme level. Would you want to take a diagnosis for a medical condition in a healthcare environment from a generative LLM? Probably not. Like right now, definitely not. However, that doesn't mean you can't apply large language models in lots of other ways within the contact center. So one of the things that Andy talked about earlier is when we're going through this mining process of your data, we're actually using generative AI to help us categorize the various topics or buckets of customer contact, and then we do that by having it summarized like long form transcriptions, whether that be in the form of transcribed audio in the form of a phone call, or whether it be in the form of a chatbot interaction that might go on for many pages, being able to distill that down into a nice summary and then use other machine learning and AI techniques to kind of cluster that stuff together to give us really good insight into what is happening. So you can apply generative AI techniques today, but not necessarily in the way that people might automatically jump to a conclusion of, oh, I'm just going to talk to a generative AI bot.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, it's kind of you can kind of see all these fascinating new use cases, and the hype catches up with you. But I think you've answered that question very well in terms of the practical application of these technologies, with emphasis on the word practical. And to come to my final questions now, we've covered a lot of bases here in this conversation around contact centers and AI. But I don't know if you both want to take this one on and just tell me kind of what else is exciting you within the contact center AI world, and what you're doing at Five9. What else is really kind of capturing your imagination when it comes to AI?
I might start and then Andy can take over. But one of the areas that we're really looking at the moment is how to use these sort of new technologies and these new engines to create essentially real-time knowledge bases that are sort of specific to a particular enterprise or specific to a particular caller or chat respondent or whatever it might be, and being able to do that in a way where we can use these generative AI techniques. And essentially what that's going to allow is going to sort of supercharge the agents you have. One of the challenges with agent assist technologies typically has been, I'm hearing the conversation, I'm going to pop you up a sort of little card that pops up in front of the agent, and the agent says, well, I've seen that card 100 times today. It's kind of getting really annoying. I don't want to see it anymore. But you really do want it to pop up that card when the agent is sort of struggling or not sure or is asking for help, and being able to do that in real time. And in order to do that, the thing that's generally being asked about is something that's not coming up very often. So how do you surface that data? How do you get that in front of your agent? And how do you make sort of every agent your best agent because they've got access to this sort of corporate knowledge? That's an area that's really kind of interesting, and we're working on that pretty intensively right now.
Yeah, that's good, Kalen. I think the only thing I would add is, we're the AI market is evolving and the technology so quickly, and vendors like Five9, we're building and wrapping our products around that technology. I think that what we're going to see though is we're very use case focused right now, right? Which will always be the case, but at some level it's going to be more about just AI weaved in and leveraged across the entire platform, versus just going, hey, how did you deploy AI? Some customers just go, hey, I just did a voice IVA, right? Some saying I just did a digital IVA. But really, I think the vendors that are going to win in the end are the ones that thread AI throughout the entire platform. I think that's where we're going to see the best growth in the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some great comments to finish the interview there. I'm sure there's so much more we could talk about. I mean, the recent acquisition of Asius and how that can overcome some of the data issues that you were mentioning earlier, and then the kind of new AI distiller tool that you've released at Five9 is also another excellent example of your generative AI innovation. But I think I'm going to end there before I sort of start to blow my mind with all these possibilities. But yeah, thanks very much both for joining me today.
Thank you.
And also thanks to everybody for watching. Bye for now.